All right, welcome to the official Road Less Traveled podcast. I'm Sashide, I'm the executive producer of the show.
And I'm Jonathan Legg. You hear that metal saw that just started?
We'll talk about this. It's a very frequent occurrence.
Yeah.
But you find us currently in Bali. We wrapped up our Vietnam shoot and we're just in the process of starting up our Bali episode. Apparently the pool got started too. All right, so there's going to be a lot of audio interferences. That's just the nature of the beast. So.
Nature of the beast, yeah. It seems to be almost a Murphy's Law when you're filming, that it could be dead quiet, and as soon as you set up the cameras and get ready to roll, suddenly all these new sound influences.
So this is a very accurate recreation of what we face in the field.
Exactly. You're getting the raw version.
Although let's stop that pool pump. All right, pool pump is taken care of, but that construction noise we can't do anything about.
Nature of the beast.
Milestones.
50th episode, we just wrapped. Vietnam was 50.
50th episode, 5 seasons, and well over 26 countries.
Right. Discovery Asia deal now has given us exposure in about every corner of the earth.
Pretty much, other than Australia and New Zealand, we have been almost on every country imaginable since 2011, yeah.
Amazing.
Which we are stoked about.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it's fantastic that the format of our show is very open range, if you will. I'm not exactly sure how we gravitate towards one spot or the other. It's almost like the call of the wild. Things just sort of serendipitously fall in place, and we're attracted to a spot. Maybe a story emerges, maybe it's just a whim, but we always find the story when we go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when we started off Road Less Traveled was a format of not having a format.
Yeah.
It's just, whatever Jonathan's adventures on the road is going to be, the best way that we can capture that without having a script, that sort of was our format. So, and I think we've stuck to our guns with that.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that is one of the big gems of the series, is try to recreate the travel experience that has been so influential to many of us in our lives. If you've traveled a lot, you know how it really opens up your mind, exposes you to new ideas, connects you to different people and environments. And in a slickly produced show, you don't really get that. It's more like razzle dazzle. But we're trying to give you the real experience by filming a real experience. And sometimes there's wins and sometimes there's misses, but always keeping it real.
Yeah, and always rolling the cameras. In fact, we have this joke that if something bad, knock on wood, happens to you, Jonathan himself says, just keep rolling.
Yeah. Every time we go to a destination where there's a hazard, let's say we're going to a place that's full of crocodiles, I'm like, if a crocodile grabs me and drags me out of the boat, roll on it.
All right, let's focus. Vietnam, we wrapped Vietnam. It was about a 14-day shoot. We started off in Hanoi and made our way down south to Ho Chi Minh on a dinky little Kawasaki 150cc enduro bike.
Right. It's not perhaps the most ideal bike for such a long journey.
It's not, but it's such a light and hassle-free machine, so unstressed, that it did the job.
It did do the job.
And we wanted to avoid the main highways of Vietnam, so we kind of we hugged along the coastal route, sort of veered inwards when needed, and then back towards the coastal route. So I thought it did all right.
It's billed as the classic ride, one of the world's most classic rides, and it's a highly romanticized journey.
Yes, absolutely. As a motorcyclist, I've been riding since 2007. Vietnam's been on the bucket list for every single motorcyclist. So, having done the ride, we have a few gripes. It's beautiful. I think that the thing that stood out for me was how friendly people were throughout.
Yeah, great locals. Every time you stop at a roadside stand, they're super happy to have you there. They're trying their best to communicate with you, even if there's no English involved. Our Vietnamese isn't that good, but you could just tell people are excited to have a foreigner.
If they're drinking, they'll just force you to come drink with them and cheers with them and do the whole countdown thing.
Yeah, that's a
which was
good point.
fun.
It's
Yeah.
one of the few countries in the world where like a drunk group of men is not something to necessarily be avoided.
Right.
You know, there's some countries where there's a drunk group of guys you want to steer clear, but in Vietnam they're generally peaceful.
Right. So that was definitely a plus. Super friendly locals. What wasn't as big of a plus was the pollution.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of trucks and buses on the road.
Everything diesel.
Everything's diesel, and you'd like to imagine the whole ride is this super idyllic cruise through the rice paddies, and
in parts they are.
in parts it
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
There are real moments of beauty, but anytime it starts to get a little urban, you just have a lot of vehicles that in Vietnam they come at you from all kinds of directions, and people do unexpected things. There's probably a system to how things work, but it's not an easy one to grasp.
Yeah.
So I've heard people call it organized chaos. So as you're riding, you have to be on full alert. It's not like some motorcycle advertisement you might see where you're just kicking back on your cruiser and going. No, you're like watching for a bike or a ox or a cow or anything to pop out from any direction.
Yeah, and when they pop out, it could be in any tangent. It's not necessarily, like someone coming across to merge with you. It could be somebody merging from the opposite lane, opposite to you.
Right.
And it can happen just like that. So the chances of T-boning someone is tremendous.
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah. You do have people coming down the wrong side of the road. They've left their home on your side of the road and they're trying to we got somebody at the door.
Yay! All right, so there's not going to be any continuity. We're just going to keep getting interrupted. But anyway,
Yeah.
where were we?
Traffic. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, even in the countryside, I have my first. Yeah.
It's hot. Can't help it.
It's hot in here. Well, I almost had my first traffic accident on a country road. I was going rather fast. There was a guy I was passing, but I was passing him with a good 3 meters to the left. And then I think suddenly he noticed that he was about to miss his turn. So without putting on a signal, without indicating, he just veered across all the lanes, and I'm coming hot, and I mean, we must have come this close from crashing. And of course, I turned around and let out a stream of expletives. But then I realized that it was partially my fault because I come from a country where it's visually dominant, the driving. Like you come to an intersection, you look both ways, and then you go.
And you respect the right of way.
And you respect the right. Yeah, there's two differences right there. Vietnam is a partial auditory system when it comes to riding, so everybody's honking and they get used to it, so they're listening for the honk. So people will come out from a small road onto a bigger road and not even look. They're listening. If in the minute they start to enter the big road, they hear a horn blast, then they'll turn, but they're listening for it, not looking for it. So it feels weird for me coming from the US to be blasting my horn so much. I feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you're putting yourself in danger. You have to be on the horn constantly, looking, and the minute you see somebody popping out, give them the horn.
Yeah, and I think the safest place to be is on the far right. Motorcycles and scooters, they're almost always riding on the shoulder, not even on the main lane. That's sort of like the designated area for, little 150cc dinky bikes to be at.
That's true.
So
and
rarely would you see anybody on the fast lane, what we consider the fast lane. Those are reserved for cars and trucks and whatnot.
True. And as you get in the cities, they actually have these dividers that'll force all the bikes into one spot.
Yeah.
But strangely, buses and trucks are not above just getting in the motorcycle lane if they feel like it's flowing faster.
Yeah.
And then they will get right on your back tire.
That was probably the most nerve-wracking when there's like a truck here, you're on the shoulder, and there's some guy that's like trying to pass the truck, both lanes are filled up, and he's right on your ass, and there's just no safety margin. You're like, I don't know what to do, and you only have 150 cc's at your disposal. It's not like you can just, bust out of that jam. So,
Yeah, I think for the locals, they're used to it, but when you have a huge bus or truck literally a meter from your back tire and you're going 80 kilometers an hour, it's it makes you a little nervous.
Yeah, we've ridden all over the world, and I think because of our driving/riding style, we're very cognizant of who's behind us, who's next to us. But here in Vietnam, they just DGAF.
Yeah.
I mean, people will cross intersections without even looking to the right. They just go straight and not ever look at the oncoming traffic.
Right.
And we've had so many brake check moments.
Right.
It's just insane.
So, yes. So, having said all that, if you're thinking about doing the ride, I would say you need hundreds, if not thousands, of hours experience on a bike, especially if you're planning on bringing your friend or your girlfriend, your boyfriend,
a group ride,
or a group ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're putting yourself at risk and the other person at risk. It's advanced technical riding.
Yeah. You want to talk about Ho Chi Minh? Riding into Ho Chi Minh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do have thousands of hours of bike riding experience in my life, and that was the most nerve-wracking ride coming in to the main city.
Ho Chi Minh.
Ho Chi Minh, also called by its old name Saigon. By the time I dropped off the bike and got into my hotel room, I just laid on the floor for like 30 minutes staring up at the ceiling, letting the stress flow out of me.
Yeah.
So, would you do the ride again?
I'd look at other places. It was beautiful. Parts of it were tremendous. We had a great experience filming the show. But man, I think the danger I can live with, but the pollution, I couldn't do it again.
Yeah, dangerous and polluted.
Yeah.
Some beautiful moments. I'm glad I did it, but I wouldn't do it again either. And unless you're an experienced rider, I would not recommend that ride.
Yeah.
No slight to the country. It's beautiful. They just have their own system of doing things, and it's a high stakes system that requires a really good motorcycle skills and strong nerves. And if you're not accustomed to things coming at you from all directions and a lot of horns and a lot of buses and trucks on your tail, then you won't enjoy it as much as you think you will.
And just to put it into context, it was about 2,000.
Yeah, it's a long ride. It's a long ride.
We budgeted, 12 days? Almost 14 days?
Yeah.
We had a production car, and we had the 150. And
That's
we
a good
swapped around
point.
where opportune, but...
That's a good point. If you had 3 weeks and you were going to just take small rural roads through the center of Vietnam, it might be a different story. But if you're trying to do it within 2 weeks, within 10 days along the coast...
It's going to be taxing.
Yeah, it's going to be taxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've put it out there. You guys have questions for Johnny. Let's get to them. And thanks for writing, everybody. All right. Hey, Jonathan. We love the show and watch it daily. This is from Brad. Have you ever linked up with military personnel in your travels? Wonder if there was ever a nexus there you could explore. Still catching up with your seasons. So yeah, have you ever linked up with military personnel in your travels?
That's a good question, Brad. Thanks for asking and thanks for watching the show. I think of 2 examples off the top of my head. One was in the Himalayas in, was that Arunachal Pradesh?
Yes,
Yeah.
on the border. Yeah.
The border, close to China. As you may have known, there was a time when China just out of the blue started invading the territory of India, and they marched on 100 miles or something in, just kicking ass, and then they just said, okay, we're going to go back now. So since then, there's been a heavy military presence on the border, and we ran into an Indian platoon, I guess, there, and they were really friendly, and they showed us the site of one of their famous battles where I guess an Indian hero soldier held out for a long time against an overwhelming Chinese force. That was a nice moment. We just kind of got to know the site and the story of the invasion. And then there was another time we were in Chechnya, in southern Russia, which obviously has had its share of conflict. And we were in touch with the Russian Special Forces, and there was talk about doing training with them, which I was a little nervous about, because they hinted that part of the training was going to be me donning a bulletproof vest and getting shot with an AK-47. But, you know, it's an experience. Anyhow, we were told it was going to happen, and then like early in the morning they were like, no, it's not going to happen, and we went back to our rooms in the hotel and started planning different things, and then they called us on the hotel phones an hour later and said it's going to happen, and it went on like that through the whole day. I think what was happening is it was slowly going up the chain of command, and this guy said yes, and then his superior said no, and then that guy's superior said yes. And unfortunately, in the end, we did not get it, but it did put us right on the map of the KGB FSB, who later accosted us in the mountains.
Different story.
Different story.
We also tried with the Philippine Air Force.
We did, yeah. That's right. We tried, there was a period of time where there was some massive storms and a lot of flooding, and we tried to partner with the Philippine Air Force to go on some of the rescue missions. I think by the time we ran through the chain of command, the floods had already subsided, and they weren't doing those missions as more. But I agree with you that it would be something very interesting. It's something to explore, and so we'll keep our eye out for opportunities.
Just from a producer's perspective, it is a lot of red tape, and it sort of goes against the unscripted nature, because you have to set it up in advance and get approval and permissions, things like that. So if it really comes together in a natural, seamless sort of manner, then I think we'll keep seeking that.
Right, like it did in Arena Shaw.
Yeah, exactly.
We just ran into this lonely platoon, and maybe if they called the commander, he would have put the kibosh on it, but they were just bored up there, and they're like, yeah, come on, like hang out with us. So that's...
All right. This one's from Rona. Hey Jonathan, love your show, learning a lot from your travels. The ones that stood out for me thus far were your visits to Ireland and India.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide on which country you're going to visit next, and what preparations you and your team make before going to these unknown places, sites in any of the countries you decide to visit?
That's a good question, Rona. Thank you for asking. To be honest, a lot of the countries, I'm not sure how we pick them. It's sort of like they pick us. It's kind of like some news will come out of there, some opportunity or an idea. It's always different, and the preparation is I'll scour the internet first, looking for, let's say it's Ireland. I'll look for Weird Ireland, Strange Ireland, Death Ireland,
Paranormal
Ireland, Mystery Ireland, Missing Tourist Ireland, Unresolved, just every keyword, and dig deep in the search results, not the top ones, but deep down in there. And that quite often will give me one or two ideas. And then also I have like sort of these grander themes in mind, which you or anybody can employ on a trip, where maybe you want to, when you think of Ireland, for example, perhaps you think about the idea of freedom, and so you're going to explore that theme in Ireland. Or when you think of India, you think about spirituality, so you're going to craft your India trip around finding unique kinds of spirituality. Now, I do the same thing. I come in with sort of a focus of what does this country kind of evoke in me, what theme that I'm just interested in life in general. For example, in Vietnam, it was heroism. I'm interested in this idea of the hero's journey, and Vietnam just happened to be perfect for it because it's a country of heroes. So, great, let's go through Vietnam and look for examples of heroism. And then once we get on the ground, again, to the nature of our show, we have a lot of open space in the schedule for things to come to us,
right,
as it naturally would for you or anybody else who's on a trip, has their eyes and ears open.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything planned ahead, save, a few ideas, maybe a few threads. Obviously, there is a little bit of calling ahead for different ideas that we have going on, like, hey, we want to film at this museum or whatnot, but usually it's just whatever comes along on the way, we sort of incorporate it and try to capture it in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's very organic. It's difficult to explain, right?
It is very difficult to explain.
It's unscheduled. It's organic. It's people that we meet in random circumstances, ideas, they bounce ideas off to us and we go, oh, that might be interesting. We chase ideas a lot.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair to say. We chase ideas a lot.
We chase ideas a lot, which sometimes are busts, sometimes are booms.
Epic busts, yeah.
We've wasted a lot of time looking for things that didn't end up great, and then sometimes we waste no time and we get something huge. For example, in Italy, we're walking by this... we're just literally walking down the street and somebody comes out of a door and there's this smell of food that comes out of the door, and I was like, oh wow, you guys hungry? Let's go in. And we go in, we load up our plates, it's like a cafeteria, get to the cashier, and the cashier's like, where's your student card? I'm like, cash? She's like, no cash, you need to have a student card. Shit. And the lady behind us in line is like, you can use my card and I'll pay you and you give me the cash for it. So we sit down next to this lady, and she is an avalanche researcher. And in the course of our conversation, I asked her if she knows the mountain rescue guys in the Dolomite Mountains. And she's like, yeah, I know them. It's like, can you hook us up with it? And next thing you know, we're in a helicopter.
That was pretty awesome.
Doing a simulated rescue scene, just like that.
Yep.
And I think these things can happen to everybody on a trip. You just can't be too locked into your itinerary and marching from one thing to the next. You've got to have those moments where you breathe and you look around and you're attuned to the people around you and you're willing to join in a conversation. Mm-hmm. That's where the magic happens.
All right, we have to cite the whale temple chase.
In
Nissan.
Yeah,
I know you were super stoked about that.
For sure. So yeah, this is one idea that I somehow found about. I somehow researched this idea that the Vietnamese do worship whales, which is a nice thing. It's one of the few countries that really respects this beautiful, majestic, intelligent creature. And they have temples. When the fishermen find a whale that's washed up, they bury it, wait a couple of years, dig it up, clean the bones, and put it in a temple where it's worshipped. And there are several temples, but there was one on an island that seemed the most remote, the most Lison Island, the most road less traveled. But we got to the port, and it was a beautiful little port town. I'm glad we spent the night there, but we just could not seem to get on that boat. There was always some issue. We went to the counter, and we didn't have our passports. We come back to the counter, and we need a stamp. And in the end, we just missed every boat.
Yeah, we probably spent a good 24 hours waiting to get on this boat.
Yeah.
But we never got on the boat.
We never got on the boat, but this opened up another thing for us where now I'm looking for other content kind of in the area, and discover that there is a hospital in the area that treats a medieval old world disease, something you've heard about, that's lingered with humanity for a long time. Maybe you thought it was in the past. Should we leave it a mystery what this is?
Yeah, let's just call it an old world disease.
Old world disease, and some people who are still fighting it.
Yeah.
Linked also, this was a surprise, linked to a famous Vietnamese poet. And I read a little poetry on camera, so stay tuned for that. It's my second poetry reading on camera. This one with my clothes on.
All right. Moving on.
Thank you for the question.
All right. Debbie writes, how is the language barrier and strictness of certain customs?
It's a good question. Language barrier is for real. It's not as harsh a reality anymore because of the translate applications. So you can literally go back and forth. In fact, in Colombia, I witnessed a guy have a Tinder date entirely through his phone. This guy didn't speak a lick of Spanish, the girl he was dating didn't speak a lick of English, and they managed to work out the date through the phone. So we're living in a unique era. But outside of the phone, I would recommend occasionally to set it down and just give pantomiming a try, because you can communicate a lot with body language, and it also endears you to the people. Like, if you're like, where is the,
I always enjoy your pantomime. It just gives me a good laugh.
People love it, and if they get it, it's a much more fun moment that you've shared together, other than like typing stuff in like rah, 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 rah. It's much more fun to try the pantomime, so I recommend that.
And I might add, we did do this entire journey in Vietnam without a guide or translator.
Yeah, that's true.
Our driver, a great guy, but he didn't speak any English at all. And
no, and yeah, that was a challenge, but we still got a great story.
Exactly. Stuff got communicated. We ended up where we needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that challenge adds to the fun.
For sure. For sure.
Strictness of certain customs?
Well, strictness of customs, again, that brings me to Chechnya, for example, which was a kind of a rough and tumble area. The political posters in Chechnya, in most of the world, you see an ad for like, I'm running for mayor, and the guy's in a suit, he's like, yeah, vote for me. In Chechnya, it's like this, vote for me, because they really value the super macho man. And so it's also an Islamic area, so when I walked through the streets and we walked through the markets, if a beautiful woman walked by, I had the horse blinders on, because everybody's watching me to see my reaction. And I don't know why that comes to mind with strictness of customs. There's also little things you need to consider. For example, in Vietnam, many countries, they consider the foot the lowest part of the body and the head the highest part. So you don't want to pat somebody on their head. You don't want to point your feet at people. It's wise to learn about these things before you go to a country, so you don't offend your hosts and just be a bad ambassador for wherever you're from.
Right. I might add that when I'm looking out for the crew, which I always am, obviously, if we have a female member in the crew and we're going to an Orthodox area, that there's certain things you can do, especially when it comes to attire.
Right.
That's a biggie.
That is a biggie. And you've probably noticed in all the episodes I'm wearing long pants. I'm wearing shorts at the moment, but I wear long pants all the time, just about everywhere, because you never know where you're going to stumble upon a place where there are some kind of custom rules about shorts. So it automatically gives you all access. There's a lot of places in the world where you don't see men wearing shorts at all unless they're on the beach. And so you just blend in better with long pants. And I know some people think it's hot, but you're just a much more versatile traveler with the long pants. Not to mention, if you're out long and the sun sets and the mozzies come out, the mosquitoes, you're protected. So I would recommend generally for a traveler to wear long pants everywhere they go.
Here. All right, next question from Michael. Do you ever get food sick?
Yeah, you know the answer to this one. Oh yeah.
Resounding yes.
For sure. I got sick once here in Indonesia on some nasi goreng. That was a bad one. What else? What comes to your mind?
Knock on wood, but we actually don't. I mean, it happens, but on the road less traveled, we haven't had foodborne illnesses too many times.
Not too many times. It's never really derailed our filming.
Yeah.
Not more than a day or so. You got altitude sickness, really bad once in the
Himalayas. Yes.
Yeah. And probably the worst I got sick was not filming, but I was in a small little village between Panama and Colombia, hiking between the two countries and staying at this shacky place where the lady asked me what I wanted to eat, and I said, "What's the specialty?" And she brings out these shrimp covered in mayonnaise, but there's no refrigeration in this town. So right away, my spidey sense was like, nah. But she's standing above me, like beaming, like, oh, you know. And so I felt this compulsion. Not only did I spend the money for it already, but this lady's like looking down with pride at her dish. So I ate it, and it was one of the worst nights of my life. So it's a tough one. It's tough when you're in that position. You got to come up with some excuse. I would say generally trust your senses. Mm-hmm. If you take that first bite, something feels off. Don't think about like, well, I bought it, I spent the money. No, stop eating it. Yeah.
And on that note, I think we also take a lot of precautions to ensure that we don't get sick, namely water. Controlling your water intake, the source of your water intake.
Right.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
We're always on top of that.
Drinking a lot of water. We filter our own water. And the longer you last in a country, the deeper you get in, the less a chance you're going to get sick, because you're getting exposed here and there to little drops of the water in the shower and from the dishes that somebody washed. Yeah. So you start building up your biome, and you're safer and safer.
Yeah. Bottom line, we make it a very strong point not to get sick from food or water, because if he gets sick, that's it. That's 3-4 days of the shoot days just gone. Money wasted, time wasted. So we try to ensure it never happens. But it's a roll of the dice sometimes.
It's a roll of the dice, and for you as an independent traveler, if you come to certain destinations like India, for example, you just count on it.
Yeah,
count on
absolutely.
it happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Okay, this one's from Sabrina. Of all the mysteries or legends you researched, did anything prove to be true?
Ooh. That's a good question. Well, anything come to your mind?
Legends, what about Ritan Mountain in Serbia? Did you feel a spiritual, mystical force as you went to the mountain?
Well, not more than any mountain. Yeah, I feel like every mountain has a certain spiritual force, but this one, I don't think it's an ancient pyramid covered in dirt, although it looks like one. When you say, was it true, it's usually not true as stated. For example, the exorcism, demon possession we covered in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Right? Like if it was a demon, I would have been stoked. I would love to see a demon. That would just radically change my view of the world and get me all excited. But it wasn't. But it is a sort of it's a really interesting thing, what it is, which is mass hysteria, which you've heard the term, but what it means, it's a really unique phenomena with ancient roots and this weird little trigger that some of us have in our mind. So there was a truth there, but it wasn't quite what we expected or what was advertised.
Yeah. And I think what was especially interesting was how deeply the locals themselves believed, be it vampires or the demon.
Right.
They believed it. In fact, I'll see if I can cut in this clip where I asked a person, and you believe?
But in this village, the creatures are thriving.
And you believe in Aswan?
Yes, of course.
In the Manananggal, and they were like, of course, like, what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Right, and then that belief affects their experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was one incident, I don't know if you recall this, in season 1 we were in Jaipur, and we got a tip that there used to be a lady up in the forest living in like a little, castle, mansion, asylum in the middle of the forest, who was a witch.
Rajasthan, right?
Rajasthan, yeah. And our guide didn't want to take us there. He was scared, legitimately scared. But we insisted. We took a Jeep up. We were told, as we were in the Jeep, not to hang out of the Jeep because leopards could pick you off. It was that perilous of a jungle forest. And then sure enough, suddenly we get to a clearing, and there is this decrepit large building, and in it are these 3 witches. They give us a kind of a tour of the place. We sit down for an interview. I asked the main witch a question that I think she didn't like. I think something about burning her ex-husband outside. And then she's like, okay, you guys got to go. And as we're getting shuffled out, one of the other witches sort of grabs me by the arm and guides me into a room, which I suppose was the room where they cast the black magic. It had a thing of Kali on the wall, the goddess, and it had a table with these coconuts and beads and a mirror.
Yes.
Right? Do you remember that mirror?
Yes.
Yeah. And something about the mirror caught my eye. I stared into it, and there was just something, I don't know.
A creepiness.
Something off. Everything else, even this gruesome picture of Kali was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But something about that mirror. And as Sashi and I are poking around this room, our guide, who refuses to go in the room, is like, let's go. And so we leave, we get in the Jeep, we're driving back, and then I turn to Sashi, or he turns to me, and we're like, did you notice something weird about that mirror? And right away the other person was like, yeah. And then our guide was, yo, that's because it's the black magic mirror. That's where they cast the spells. I told you guys not to look in it. And he went off on this rant. And, that's not to validate that this mirror had any special power, but it is strange that we both noticed something weird about it, and then our guide freaked out about the fact that we stared into it. So,
What about the Naki in Finland? It did attack you.
Yeah, that's right. It pulled me right into the water.
Oh, I got one more. Ireland, that castle, that dungeon.
Did you think that was legit?
It wasn't. I mean, some of the answers that we got were.
Yeah, it had some creepy moments. But so we're sitting in this dungeon, and this guy, this ghost hunter guy, has this. You remember the name of that mechanism?
Frank's box.
Frank's box. Yeah, it's like a radio that's just constantly moving between transmissions.
Random AM or FM frequencies, could be both.
And so it's stopping at different points, and you're catching little pieces of conversation as it's stopping. And then he'll ask the ghost a question, and the idea is the ghost can kind of influence where it stops, so you can hear the words. And I think at one point he said, "Can you tell us who's sitting beside me?" And it was like, John.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit like, whoa, did it say John? But it could have been any on sort of sound. I mean, maybe our brain just filled in the blank.
Right.
And then there were a few misses as well. I think you've always got to consider in these circumstances that your brain is super primed for it. So
it's the setting, 16th century or something.
Yeah.
Westland, Ireland. You're sitting in the dungeon knowing people have been tortured and left for dead there. So you are primed.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was just you alone, how primed.
Well, that guy did it.
Yeah.
He's been there for a while. But anyway. The things we come across.
There it is. So the closest thing, I guess, would be that to something unexplained would be the mirror.
Oh, one more. The list goes on. Bhangar in Rajasthan, the most haunted place in India.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, the haunted village. That's an interesting story again of something that's maybe not quite. There is something going on, but it's not exactly what you thought it was. And a lot of people disappear from this haunted town, which is now in ruins, and there's a story about a wizard back in the day who cursed the place, and to this day people disappear while poking around the ruins, namely smaller children. So Sashi and I decide we're going to sneak in past the guard and spend the night there, and nothing happens to us. But as we walk out the next morning, the guard kind of shakes his head at us. He sees us leaving, and I guess they were probably looking for us, and he knows what we're up to, and he shakes his head, and I kind of hang my head, and as I walk by him, I'm like, yeah, man, no ghosts. And then he says to me, no ghosts, panthers. And there you go. That's what's taking the small children. The place is apparently full of leopards.
It looked like it would have leopards.
Yeah. So maybe we are lucky that we didn't meet our end in this haunted city.
Yeah. All right, falling on the animal topic, Alexander asks, what is the most impressive animal you met and a plant, or plant species?
That's a good question. You go first. I need to think about this.
On the road less traveled, elephant. It's hard to deny the might of an elephant. You know, remember we tried to deadlift that log on the outskirts of Burma and Thailand in the jungle. We did that segment with the mahout. We tried to lift this huge log with all our might. Both of us couldn't budge it an inch. Elephant comes over, uses his trunk, just like moves it like it's a toothpick.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was a pretty majestic
Yeah.
animal. And also in Cambodia, we worked a lot with Wildlife Alliance and several branches of their effort in the country. And there was one guy, really remarkable dude, who came from London. He was a big cat specialist, super alpha guy. I mean, he's got scars on his forearm from tigers and on his neck from leopards. He survived 2 attacks. And he took us to a tiger at one point, and we looked at the tiger from behind a cage, but he opened this large flap for us to get a clean shot of the tiger. And the tiger kind of looks at us and starts inching towards that flap. And the tiger is still probably 100 meters away, and this guy closes the flap real quick. You know, I would have thought we were safe at 100 meters, but apparently the thing can close the distance fast, faster than you imagine. And just that moment of the tiger kind of looking at you and coming in, it's like, wow, this is an alpha predator. And it's rather thrilling, actually, to stare right at it. And it's probably a sensation our ancestors had all the time, but we don't have anymore, to feel predation. Like this thing is looking at you like a piece of meat. It's scary, but thrilling at the same time.
Good answer. All right, this question is probably the question that we get asked the most anywhere we go, which is from Andre. What's your favorite country of all that you have visited? And would you like to visit Portugal?
Well, the second one's easy. I've been to Portugal before, not filming, but we'd love to go back and film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great place, great food, great scenery, great people. Favorite country, that's a tough one. And here's how I answer that. It really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to relax and unwind, Finland is a great choice. These people are like the masters of chill. If you're looking for a natural adventure, Montenegro, or maybe Southern California. You probably say Northern California.
Yeah, for nature, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you're looking to change something in yourself, to adjust your perspective on the world, it's hard to get more bang for your buck than India. But again, if you're going to go there, you go there with that intention, not because you want to relax and chill. It's not that kind of place. But if you're going to adjust your mind, change your perspective, open up to new ideas, India is your jam.
Yeah.
So every country has its thing, and really the key to enjoying a country is not to project something on it,
or expect something from it,
or expect anything from it. Yeah. Let it tell you its story instead of going there assuming you know the story. That's where a lot of disappointment comes in. In fact, we looked at that briefly in Paris. There's something called the Paris syndrome, which apparently affects Japanese people the most because of the amount of advertising in Japan that idealizes the Paris experience. And then tourists get there and they think it's going to be all baguettes and bonjour and people riding around on bicycles. But no, it's a big city. There's a lot of fuck yous and
rough
get out of the way, and then they're stunned. And that expectation colliding against this harsh reality puts them into a depression. So this happens to us all in a slight degree. You know, even you go to Hawaii and you're picturing sunny beaches and then it's raining, it's easy to get bummed out. So really the key is don't expect anything. So even if you get to Hawaii and it's raining, great. Let's see what Hawaii in the rain is like. And partially, this is why I really like these road less traveled destinations. A place like, say, Serbia, because I haven't seen any advertisements idealizing Serbia. You don't see it much in movies. You have little idea what it's about. Great. Don't read anything about it. Just go and let it open itself up to you.
All right, but come on, man. What's your favorite country?
It's always changing, man.
Yeah, it's very difficult to frame it. I mean, I look at it as from the perspective of what kind of experience we had collectively as a group.
Yeah, okay.
And Italy for me comes to mind immediately, just because of how great the weather was, how great the food was, that time of summer, the things that we did, from the Dolomites to whatnot, so that really sticks out for me, like how our group dynamic was and how much fun we had making the show.
That's true. We had a lot of fun. It was relaxed. We got great stories.
Yeah.
We ate well. It's hard to beat Italy in the summertime if you avoid the tourist traps.
Yeah.
Watch our show. Show you how it's done.
All right, I think that wraps up all the questions that we got, that we have time for anyway.
All right, so thanks for asking your question, guys. If we didn't get to it, I'll go over this list later and just write a response on the list if we didn't get to it here. We're so grateful to you, our fans. It's just great that somebody wants to come along on this journey, and we think about you. I think about you. I try to talk straight down the camera to you. I try to give you a genuine experience. I try to be as honest and open and transparent with my experience. And yeah, I deeply appreciate you taking time out of your life to follow along on these journeys, and I hope that the travels are as transformative, or there's a piece of that transformational power in them that I experience when I'm on the road. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And from my perspective, I do my best to make sure that it's coming from a vantage point that you're right there watching Johnny unfold and uncover these adventures, right alongside him. And that's the joy. It's a tremendous joy.
Yeah, and it helps that we have this great relationship. Sasha and I have been filming together since 2011. And so we really are an intimate crew. There's no friction, there's no weirdness, there's no arguments about anything. So you're seeing a smooth experience of basically two buddies on the road, one really in tune with capturing the experience, and the other one, I hope, in tune with transmitting the experience.
Yeah, and as far as motivation, it's really something when you hear from somebody in Trinidad writing to you, or somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Europe, just saying, hey, I love the show, love watching it, keep doing what you're doing. That's just more motivation for us.
Oh yeah, your feedback makes my day. And some comments I've heard years ago, they still stick with me. I think about them. So thank you for everybody who's reached out.
Cool. And you'll see more of these podcasts coming. Next one's going to be all about Bali. So if you're interested in Bali, you'll get the road less traveled perspective on Bali.
Stay tuned.
Cheers. Thanks for watching, guys.